Good evening. Welcome to Better Together, sharing our lupus stories. I'm Shanelle Gabriel, and we are all the way live and talking about lupus. We thriving with lupus over here. Better Together is here to empower people living with lupus with the tools to be their best advocates, to connect to others in the lupus community, and to live their best life. So this is our second for this season, and every other Tuesday we're going to be here. But I have to welcome my co-host. Please put some welcomes in the chat. Let's welcome Dr. Micaela Bayard, aka the Lupus Doc.
Hello,
Hey.
Shanelle. So great to be here with you. I'm excited for tonight's guest and the topic, what's going on your body with lupus. So we're going to get into a deeper understanding of really talking about lupus, because often people know that they have it, but they don't really get a chance to truly understand all of the ins and outs of it.
No, facts. I was just told it's autoimmune, your body's attacking itself. And that I feel like it's way deeper than that. Am I not? Am I correct?
Very much so. We know the human body is such an amazing thing. It's constantly trying to regulate itself, balance any changes that may come across. However, sometimes this just doesn't work out and can lead to illness. So that's what we're going to be talking about. We have some really brilliant guests tonight. So one of them is Dr. Shayla Shorter. She is a scientist, educator, and lupus advocate. And she's going to help us explain in much more detail than you've probably gotten in the doctor's office, but in a way that we can all really understand and process. So we're excited to have her.
I'm so excited to have her. We also have Lakasha Lee, who is a lupus advocate and educator, the founder of Lambda Sigma Sigma Lupus Sorority Incorporated, the first and only non-collegiate Greek-lettered sorority exclusively created for women living with lupus. And this is just one of the many community service organizations she's a part of. She represents Chicago, Illinois, and fun fact, she is an avid fragrance lover, owning over 100 fragrances. For more than one reason, I'm going to say she is so sweet.
And last but certainly not least, we have Khalib Plummer, who is representing Jamaica, West Indies, has been living in the United States for 17 years. She is a strong lupus warrior, a member of Lambda Sigma Sigma, and a radiology technologist by profession. She is the mother of twins, a boy and a girl. It's amazing. And prides herself on reading a book a day, as well as having a very extensive fridge magnet collection from countries all over the world.
Oh my goodness. I need to start that kind of like collection. But wait, you forgot our other guests. Who would that be? That'd be all of you that are watching at home. So please make sure you join in the conversation. Use that chat, comment with each other. If you like something you hear, you could feel free to put some emojis, put some purple hearts in that chat. And yeah, you are a part of this process. So as I said, put some purple hearts in the chat as we meet our first guest, who I had the extreme pleasure of meeting at the New York City Walk for Lupus a few weeks ago. So show some love for my fellow Caribbean sister, Khalib Plummer. So excited to have you.
Hi, Khalib. So great to have you tonight. We have to find out, what is the coolest place you've been? What magnet do you have in your fridge you love the best?
Most recently, I was honored to go on a European tour in June, actually. And I visited 7 countries, but the most interesting one was Switzerland. Switzerland was like the absolute beautiful, just absolutely beautiful. That one, I guess, would probably be my favorite.
Okay,
Thanks
so
for
now I'm gonna
sharing.
have to visit there. Yep, I'm gonna have to visit there. I've been to the outskirts, but I got to see the beauty that you're talking about. But yes, now Khalib, you are here and you are living with lupus. So please take us back. Tell us your lupus story.
So I think I'd like to say I got diagnosed almost accidentally. I was not having lupus symptoms. I went for a regular doctor's checkup, and I just noticed, because I always keep a check on my labs. I was just noticed my white blood cell count was really low. When I queried it, nobody else seemed to think it was that big a deal. But after watching for 3 to 6 months, it just was really low, and I got worried. They say a little knowledge is fatal. So because I'm working in the medical field, I started thinking blood cancer and all kind of crazy stuff. So I said, you know what? I just got to put my mind at rest. So I asked for a referral to go to see one of the doctors over our cancer center. And I went over there and they gave me a whole barrage of tests and stuff because they thought something was really off as well. And they did a whole lot of tests. And after all the tests, they said, no, this looks autoimmune. So then they sent me to rheumatology. And then when they did, those panels, then I came up positive for lupus. At this point, I still was not having any external symptoms or anything at all like that. And then as soon as I got diagnosed, that's when I started getting sick. I started getting all the symptoms, the fatigue and the pain and the joint swelling. And it eventually reached to, it bothered I think I got a little bit of everything. I have Raynaud's. It affected my heart and my lungs, my GI system, my brain. I have like horrible, horrible brain fog, like really bad brain fog. And I think I'm having Alzheimer's sometime. It kind of just touch a little bit of everything. It affects my legs a lot sometimes. Like I just can't walk. We can never explain that one. I just literally cannot walk at all. 2 days and then after that I'm okay. Just different things. So we know lupus comes with such varied symptoms. And I guess I got a little bit of each of them. So it took a little while. The first 2 years were really, really, really rough. I got diagnosed in 2015. And up to like 2017, it was really rough. Like I was sick all the time. I couldn't go to work, all kind of different medications, trying to find something that worked. But eventually we found a cocktail that kept me stable. And, there's still bad days, so not so good days. And every day that I get up and it's a good day, I am thankful.
Cleve, thank you for sharing. You mentioned so many different symptoms. Like other people living with lupus, you can experience such a range of symptoms, but what has been the most challenging for you?
The most challenging for me is, I guess, maybe the unpredictability of what is going to come next.
Right.
I make a joke about it. Like I say, like, I have certain things that hurt me all the time. So I say, today somebody say, you okay? And I say, oh, it's today's shoulder day. Meaning today, that's what's bothering me. Like every day is something different. You never know what's going to happen. And it's most challenging for me with work, I guess, because my job is very important to me. And I take it very seriously. I think it is a big responsibility. And I don't like waking up one day and then I have to call it because I can't walk. Or, my job is very physical, or I can't use my arm today. So, I have to call out. Most of the days I push through and I go to work regardless of whatever is hurting me or how I feel. But when it's a limb that can't work, then I really can't go. So I think that's one of my biggest challenge, having to live day to day, not knowing, okay, I go to bed okay, and how am I gonna wake up tomorrow morning, Or it happened to me at work. One day I was at work, I went for lunch break and I went to sit down, I put my feet up, and then when my hour was up, I couldn't walk. They had to take me out to work in a wheelchair, things like that. It's a little unsettling sometimes, but you get used to it.
No, definitely. That's a lot to have to really modify your life around lupus. And that's something that, you look great, and everybody, that's one of the hardest things about lupus is looking great or maybe feeling great at the top of the day. And then something happens that it's not feeling like that. I do like that because I like being in the gym and trying to work out when I can. And I like that it's a shoulder day. It's a leg day. I think I'm going to steal that. That's a really cool, interesting way to talk about like what's bothering you with others and help them understand maybe too. So thank you for sharing that with us. We
know that lupus can take such a big toll on your body, and you shared with Shanelle and I about all of these symptoms you have during bad flares. But what kind of helps you get through it and pushes you through? I mean, you said you show up all the time. How do you do that?
Well, I think I'm a woman of faith. I have great faith. And I always try not to be, no matter what's going on, to always try to be positive and think positive. Lupus can be such a depressing disease Because it's like you feel like sometimes you're always sick, or there's always something going on. There's never a good time or whatever. It's easy to feed into that and just be depressed and just don't want to get up out of bed and stuff. But I have to motivate myself to push through all of that. And I have this thing. We have this saying that we have lupus, but lupus don't have us. And because of that, you push through. No matter what's going on, you just got to try to do what you have to do. And the faith helps. And also, I think being in a position where I help to treat other lupus patients. And when I look at them, I'm like, you know what? I think I'm bad, but this person is going through so much more than I am. And that makes me like say, snap out of it, Khalib. Get on with it, because that person going through hell. Whatever you're going through is like nothing compared to that. So that alone motivates me to say, I got this.
Yeah, and you do some great work in the community. I mean, like I mentioned, I saw you at the Walk for Lupus, and you were representing, and we're going to talk a little bit about your sorority in a few. But definitely, you are very active in the community, and you're an active member, and you've been walking, you've been really showing out and showing that living with lupus that you can still thrive while doing it. So
Yeah, I was at the
appreciate
walk
you.
on Saturday as well. Last
Oh
Saturday.
yeah,
LRE walk,
Me
yeah.
too.
Yeah. Okay.
oh yeah. I was about to say that's right. So both of y'all. Oh, we didn't get to connect at the walk. Oh, but thank you so much for sharing your story. And right now, we're going to bring in another lupus warrior and another sister in the Divine Nine. I'm an AKA. She's a member of Theta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. Welcome to the virtual stage, Lakasha Lee. So excited to have you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
So, welcome, Lakasha. We are so happy to have you join Khalib on this show tonight. So, it's your turn. We'd love to hear you tell us about your lupus story.
Well, my journey started in 1999. That's when I was diagnosed. I was sleeping and I got out of bed and my legs did not work. Similar to Khalid's story, you just could not walk. And then the next day I was fine. But because that was strange, I just went and to see what was going on with me. So I went to the doctor, and a couple of days later, they told me that I had arthritis. But then after my labs came back, they told me that I had lupus. I was familiar with the disease because I knew someone else who had it, and she kind of coached me through it, gave me brochures and pamphlets and websites. So I began looking things up. I was pretty fine after that. And then a few months later, it really hit me hard. I had the full malar rash. I was hospitalized for about a week or so. And after that, kind of went downhill. I was in and out the hospital. Lupus was really being active at that time. Then I started having renal failure, and they tried everything they could to stop it, but unfortunately, um, lupus just took over, and I had to be on dialysis for 8 years. And I finally got my transplant in 2017.
Mm. Thank God you did. I mean, we had a guest on here that was really still looking for a kidney transplant. And so I know that is, and learning his story, he speaks about men being a man with lupus, and that's another whole other challenging situation. But I'm so glad that you had that.
Yeah.
But I believe you've dealt with a lot. So I know you don't have the extensive magnet collection that Khalib has, but I know you told me that lupus never stopped you from traveling, right?
Right,
And
right.
I think you
Well,
told me like, you was prepared when you went in.
yeah, so when I was on dialysis, if I was going out of town, my dialysis days were Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So if I was going out of town that weekend, I would bring my luggage with me to dialysis because I did the early morning shift. And when my dialysis was over, I would just hop on the plane, have my fun and come back Sunday night and start all over again, with dialysis. I'm such an outgoing person. I love to party. I just love getting out of the house, more so because with lupus, when it hits you, you're stuck in the house.
Mhm.
And I don't like being stuck in the house. I've never been the type to stay in the house. So when I'm home, in the house, that means I'm sick.
Yeah.
So when I'm well, I try to get out as much as possible, because when I'm down, I'm down. So I really
Yeah.
want to enjoy life, see things, go places, just live life. You only have one. So I'm really not going to let lupus stop me from living my life. If it's a day to get out, a weekend, a week, it doesn't matter. I'm getting out this house. If
I
I
love
have to.
that. I love that. So knowing that you love to be out and about, what do you do to help avoid flares? Because I know you don't want to mess with those trips.
Right. I try to stay stress free. I really try not to let anyone get me down. If stress do come my way, I'm the type of person that has to vent. I have to talk about it. I might have to talk about it for several hours, but I have to get it out. And once it's out my system, it's like, okay, now we can go on with whatever else I have to do. But I have to release it. And releasing it for me is venting.
There you go. There you go. Well, I want to say thank you so much. And I know that you were out of town this weekend as well,
Yeah.
both of y'all. So can you just really quickly say where you went? Because I know you've been on a world tour of walks.
Yes, I was in Indianapolis at the LFA walk, and it was their first walk in several years. So they were bringing it back to that city, and it was very cold that morning, and but we were out there, and we had a very good time. And I did a little bit more walking and standing than I should have. I did not participate in the walk itself, but just walking around, meeting people, introducing myself, networking, just being a happy person, just having fun. I mean, enjoying the moment. So yeah, I did a little bit too much. So I'm paying for it now, but I'll be okay.
Oh, thank you for sharing. And thank you for still making time for this. I hope after this show you're gonna get some rest. Get some rest. Okay. And I mean, I think it's so great to hear all of these experiences both you and Khalib have had working together. So we're gonna and also congrats on being hospital free for years. I know you
Yes.
told me that it's been some time since you've had to check into a hospital, and it means a lot to hear folk that you went through what you've gone through and are still here and going and thriving. So thank you. We'll come
Yeah.
back to both of you. We're gonna come back to both of you to discuss the other way that you two are connected. But right now, I'm excited to bring in award winning scientist, educator, and a fellow lupus warrior and advocate, Dr. Shayla Shorter. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome, welcome to
Welcome.
the show, Dr. Shayla. Now, I know you're here to help us break down the science behind lupus, and we all want to hear about that. But we have to get a little bit of your lupus story since that's our theme here. So, can you tell us a little bit about your story? I heard that it started really young.
Yes. So I was actually diagnosed with lupus when I was 8 years old. And it actually was the kind of driving uh, determination behind me going into, um, studying lupus as an immunologist. So I got a PhD in immunology, and my desire was to study the immune system because at that young of an age, having something like lupus affect your entire life, for me, I just had a burning desire to figure out what was going on.
No, thank you. Can you? I'm so curious to hear you share. What are some symptoms that you had as a child very early on, and how are your symptoms now?
Sure. So initially, I presented with swollen joints. And so, for an 8-year-old kid that was previously really active, my parents were really concerned about kind of my sudden change in walking and getting around. And even though it's quite I don't want to say rare, but about 1 in 5 people with lupus are diagnosed at younger ages. So in adolescence, um, my pediatrician said, you know what? this might be a long shot, but let's test her for lupus. And that kind of led me down the road to after the age of 8, I had lupus nephritis, unfortunately. I had kind of the full range of lupus symptoms that many of you have, including loss of hair, pericarditis, pleurisy, all of those fun things that us lupus patients have. Thankfully, today I am actually doing quite well. I probably haven't had a flare in about 2 years, and so I try to stay hopeful and stay healthy, and hopefully the symptoms stay at bay.
I mean, thank you so much for sharing. You know, I had to look you up and Google you and do some research. And you've done so much great work educating the community. You know, just you were previously in a role, I think it was a previous role as the LRA's, the Lupus Research Alliance's scientific program manager.
Yes.
And so I know that your task here tonight, which that was awesome. You have so many videos.
Yes.
You're kind of a celebrity over there. But your task here tonight is very simple, you know, because I feel like you've been doing this great work. And many of us lupus patients, myself included, you know, we were all taught the symptoms of lupus, you know, which absolutely are terrible and ridiculous and stuff, you know. But doctors don't always do a great job of explaining the how. Not you, Dr. Micaela. I know you do a good job. You know, you let the patient. But Dr. Shayla, we're asking you, please, in layman's terms, break it down. What goes on inside of a body with lupus? And audience, feel free to put questions in the chat. We are going to bring you in as things continue. Like, you know, if you have any questions, we'll try to get to a few of them in here right now. But yeah, Dr. Shayla, take it away. What is lupus in the body?
Yeah, sure. So I think what I'll say first is that lupus is a really complex illness, and you know, doctors and patients alike, we're all trying to figure out kind of the root of this really insidious disease. So, as you all might know, lupus is caused by the body's inability to tell the difference between what is dangerous, so something like a bacteria and a virus, and what belongs to the self. So usually we call it the difference between self and non-self. And so for a number of different reasons, many of which haven't quite been figured out yet, the body loses the ability to tell that difference between what's dangerous and not. And so what happens is the body's immune system essentially mounts a response to aspects of your body. So that can include different organs, so including your skin, which is, you know, the largest organ of your body. It can be your heart. For many people, it's the joints. And also, as Lakasha mentioned earlier, it also can be your kidneys. And so it really is caused by an assault against the cells that are a part of these organs.
Got it. And how does this, you mentioned a little bit, but I'm just curious on like, what does it look like in different parts of the body?
Sure.
Because I know there's so many symptoms, hair loss, the heart. What are just some of the ways, and really surface level? Because I think next season, Lord willing, we're going to be talking about it specifically. But overview, how does it impact?
Yeah, so you may have heard that the term inflammation occurs, and that's what causes the damage. And so this inflammation is caused by the many immune cells that are releasing substances that cause, in some cases, swelling, and basically just a condition where usually if it's in the context of clearing out bacteria, you want to have like all those immune cells collecting in one area trying to fight that particular pathogen. But in the case of, let's say, your kidneys, having all of those immune cells flood into the kidneys, thinking that there's a pathogen there and releasing all of these dangerous substances can cause damage to the vessels of the kidney, making those vessels less capable of doing the filtration process that the kidney usually does. And so therefore, people with kidney nephritis, or lupus nephritis, I'm sorry, end up with kidneys that don't function well. And oftentimes, the medications that are used are designed to either stop that assault of immune cells, or if that doesn't work, then unfortunately, some patients will end up going through dialysis, which is kind of a process by which a machine helps do the filtration process that the kidney would normally do. And in more extreme cases, which some lupus patients do experience, as you mentioned, Shanelle, some people have to get new kidneys altogether because of the damage that the immune cells cause to the vessels and cells of the kidney.
Dr. Shell, you do such a good job explaining this inflammation process with all of, this normal process, that I always say, like, it's run away, it's overactive.
Yes.
So many of the questions we get are like, what really starts out that process? And since you're the expert, maybe you can talk a little bit about what we know.
Well, I don't know if I'll say that I'm an expert. Even the foremost lupus experts would tell you that we're still trying to figure that out. So in some cases, we think that there can be some sort of genetic predisposition to having immune cells that are a little bit overly sensitive or easy to react to something, a trigger that normally it shouldn't react to. So it's very, sometimes I relate it to having allergies. So some people might have allergies to dust, right? So in reality, dust isn't dangerous, but people will often have a reaction to dust and sneeze and have all of those types of reactions to something that really isn't dangerous. Very similarly, an autoimmune response is essentially the body responding to something that should not be dangerous in a very kind of overactive way, right? And so what happens in lupus is that you have this inflammation, you have these cells responding, and Dr. Micaela, as you alluded to, this inflammation just keeps continuing and continuing. And sometimes you might hear your doctor say chronic inflammation. And so chronic inflammation just means that in opposed to the immune response just turning on and then turning off, in lupus patients, you can kind of have this chronic on switch of inflammation just constantly going. And the body is not designed to maintain that amount of inflammation. And so it can be really, really dangerous, as all the symptoms of lupus kind of show.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shayla. You have been breaking down so many important terms. We're going to have you on repeat with your definitions of inflammation and chronic inflammation and just the immune system. I mean, I think these are the terms we try to really share and explain all the time. You do a lot of work clearly to educate the community and lupus community. What do you think is really the most important takeaway, the most important thing to understand lupus?
Ooh, that is that's a good question. So, if you're asking me as a scientist, what I will say is the things that are important to keep being healthy for any person are even more critically important in a person with lupus, right? So, yes, there are so many things that we don't know. We don't, fully know quite yet how to cure lupus yet, but things like exercise, eating well, lowering stress levels, those are all super important for lupus. As a lupus patient or a person living with lupus, what I will say is really important is for you to share with your circles, with your networks, what having lupus is like. Because I think sometimes they might hear the term lupus and they really don't know. And so you don't have to have a PhD or an MD or anything to explain to someone your own personal experience with lupus, right? And so you can tell them, yes, it's an autoimmune disease, and this is how it affects me. And this is how you can support me in the journey that I'm going through. So that's what I would say as both a scientist that studied lupus and as well as a person living with lupus.
I love
Okay,
that. And it's true to what we do here, talking about journeys.
No, thank you. And thank you for bringing that part of it. You don't have to always, I think sometimes we think we need all of the words. We need all of the big words to be able to explain things. And you really showed us that we can really break it down in a way that people can understand. There are a couple of questions in the chat that I'm seeing. One person's asking just, what are Shayna Brown? I want to give people shout outs. What are things that people can do externally from medication that can possibly help people live with lupus a little bit easier? I'm just curious if there's any signs on there or anything you might just know about that. And Dr. Micaela, I'm gonna throw that to you too, if you can have any thoughts too.
Yeah, well, I'll just say that, it's always first and foremost important for you to listen to what your rheumatologist or doctor that's overseeing your health, listen to what they say, because they have the most up close view of what your health status looks like. But as I mentioned before, I think one of the big things is lowering stress levels. I know that in this day and age, it can be hard to even, figure out, how do I get away from stress, right? But we know that stress exacerbates lots of different health conditions. And so lowering stress levels can do a lot to helping you to manage the disease, both from a mental, emotional kind of perspective, but also has impacts on the actual biology of the disease as well.
No, you said it well. It's stress plays a huge role.
Thank you. And I mean, we have a bunch of questions in the chat, some of which are I'm going to say we probably won't be able to get to today, but trust me, we've been looking at the chats, and that's how we also figure out what topics we cover moving forward in the future. We see a lot about asking about food and a lot of questions about just alternative medicine, of course. And we know that is, as a community, as a Black woman, we always trying to find. I'm a Caribbean, we love a bush, we love a tea.
Jamaican, all the teas, man, all the teas. My parents had me on all the teas.
But we'll definitely try to talk about food in the future, because that deserves a whole segment. And I did not prepare Dr. Shayla to be talking about nutrition. So we're going to make sure we get a guest in to talk about this in another way. And also, we've talked about some of these topics in past episodes. So please make sure that you take some time to do that, and take some time to check out our previous episodes, because we did talk a little bit about some of these questions that you have here around food, around just some comorbidities and predispositions. But yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Shayla, for really clarifying all of these important things and really helping us know what's going on within our body, because it's empowering to know it, to not feel like our body is a stranger now that it has this new thing that it has to manage. But what we are going to do, we're going to bring our guests back in, speaking of empowerment, and we're going to talk about the ways that they're empowering others through their organization. So let's bring all of our guests in here, Lakasha and Khalid. Thank you so much once again. You got to talk about it, Dr. Mika.
So yes, we have Lakasha back on the screen, and I want to direct this question to you. So you're the founder of Lambda Sigma Sigma Lupus Sorority Incorporated. So what led to this idea, and how did this all come about? What's your sorority's mission?
Well, the idea came about with me being a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. I was always attending lupus walks. And when I wore my paraphernalia, women will always come up to me inquiring about joining a sorority, or saying that they couldn't join a sorority due to lupus. So after years and years of doing different walks, it just kind of came to me that, hey, why not create something for women with lupus? And so that's pretty much what I did. And to sum up our mission, is basically, we support men and women with lupus, pretty much everybody with lupus. We volunteer, we donate monies towards lupus research and other lupus advocacy organizations. And that's our goal, is really just to help find a cure for lupus. And that's our main goal.
Amazing.
That's awesome. I mean, I think just the idea of a sorority to get people talking. And Khalif, just curious, how has being a part of this sorority been helpful to you? How has that helped you?
Oh man, it's a godsend. As I said before, lupus can be a very isolating disease, and having this family that are like-minded, they understand exactly what you're going through. Because Dr. Shayla was just saying that tell other people about lupus and how they can support you. But I find that sometimes you do that and they just still don't get it. Unless they're going through it, they don't get it. Our sisterhood is very supportive. If sometimes people have a weird symptom, like this pops up and they don't know, they'll say, "Oh, anybody else has this going on, or what do I do?" And we kind of help each other. We support each other, not just physically, but emotionally. And we all on the same page about advocating for a cure. We are very much into supporting all the other organizations, lupus organizations. We're all on the same page. It's very good when we get together. Maybe twice a year. Usually we go to Washington, and then also we have our Founders Day weekend. That's when we all get together. It's a grand time.
Oh, that's amazing. So I'm curious. I know that you have like subgroups, you have auxiliary parts of this organization. Please talk a little bit about that, because I know there are people that want to be members, but I also think it's really cool the community that you build through this.
Well, we have a support auxiliary called Lamb the Lambs, LAMS, which is Lupus Army of Motivating Supporters. And that consists of a family, friends, and just lupus supporters in general who want to help out the sorority, promote the organization, to promote fundraising, assist in fundraising, and assist us when we go out to lupus walks.
That is so great. And so how older the kids that are a part of this?
So the auxiliary that we have is for men and women and young boys, and that's from, let's say, 17 and up or 18 and up. But we do have a youth auxiliary for girls with lupus, and also with young girls who are members, who are relatives of members of the sorority who may not have lupus. And that's from age 4 and up. Because even though those kids may not have lupus, young girls may not have lupus, they understand what we go through, because they're either our daughters or our nieces or our grandchildren or sisters. So they are impacted as well, even though they don't have lupus.
So say I'm someone living with lupus, how can I, reach out? How do I take the next steps to be a part of this sorority?
So if you are a woman with lupus and you're 18 years of age or older, and you're ready to promote lupus awareness, advocacy, education, efforts to find a cure, just visit our website, www.lsslupus.org. And all of our social media is lsslupus.org.
Thank you.
That is so amazing. And I have one more question. Just, can you talk about some of the other events that you've done? Is it just the walks? I know that you've had a couple really cool events that you've done.
Khalif, you want to answer? You want me to?
Khalif, I know we're asking you, the founder. It's amazing, but Khalif, I know you can speak for that.
Well, one of the things we do now too, we have what we call butterfly and breadsticks. Well, first of all, we have different chapters. So I'm a part of the Delta chapter, which is New York and DMV area. And each chapter has butterfly and breadsticks. We try to do it every month. in our respective states. So basically what this is it's not really a recruiting area because we don't wear our lambda gear. We wear our lambda colors, which are purple and hot pink. We invite whether you're lupus warriors or just friends of lupus warriors, anybody who wants to come, we go out. We have different activities. We can go bowling, we can just go have a meal, somewhere we can hang out. And I mean, we can talk about, lupus. And if you're interested, of course, then, we'll let you know how to join us. That is one of the things we try to keep as an ongoing thing. As I said, we do the walks. Everybody does their walks in their own state. But also in Maine, New York, we do our own walk here too. Our chapter does their own walk, and all the other chapters are also encouraged to have their own. We do different fundraising. We have one coming up at the end of October here. We do the popcorn. What's it called again? Double good popcorn. Yeah, we have that coming up. So we have fundraising throughout the year as well. And as I say, we have our Founders Day weekend, which is like a grand event. We have like a 4-day weekend. We do different places, and we usually just get together. We have our balls. We have usually we have some members who are incorporating as well. And then also when we go to Washington, usually April or May, we also have new members also coming in at that time too. We have that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Did I miss anything, Illustrious?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Did I miss anything out?
Well, the trip to Washington is the LFA Lupus Summit. Okay. And so I call it the Super Bowl of the lupus community. It's a huge event where all of the pharmaceutical companies, just all the big wigs in the lupus community come out and discuss different things that is going on in lupus research. It's a great event. You get to learn a lot of things. And that's something that we do every year. And also we get a chance to speak with our congressmen, and we actually meet with them. So that's great as well. And we get to share our stories to let them know that we need more funding for lupus research. So that's what we do in Washington. And that's something that we really, really do. That's the business of the sorority. Founders Day is the fun time, but for the business of the sorority is to go to Washington to advocate. Since advocacy is one of our principles, that is something that we're very, very much involved with.
Thank you so much, Lakasha and Khalib. This is so great. I know there are so many people out there who would love to have this type of community. And I think having people who truly get what you're going through makes all of the difference.
Yes.
So, Lakasha, Khalib, Dr. Shorter, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your stories, helping us understand the science behind lupus, as well as the ways to really connect with others.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been so great having all of our guests. But now it is time for our special segment on Better Together called Spotlight on Research. Now, this segment invites guests from research sites around the country to better explain the journey that leads to new treatments. And this is how we can fully understand the clinical trial process, the facts, the myths, and also how we can be involved. So I'm very excited.
So join me as we welcome Dr. Megan Lockwood, Director of the Lupus Program and lead for the investigator site, which we're going to talk about in a minute, at MedStar Georgetown University Hospital in Washington, D.C. Dr. Lockwood.
Well, thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you for coming and joining us. And, I'm using all these different terms, but the goal today is to really understand all of them. So tell me a little bit about what it means to be an investigator site.
Yeah, so an investigator site is also known as a clinical trial site, and it's basically any place where a clinical trial is conducted. So it can be at a university hospital, it can be at any type of institute, it could be at a regular clinical center, or even in your neighborhood clinic.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's so helpful to know. So, we said clinical trials, but just for the sake of making sure our audience understands, what exactly are clinical trials? What is the goal and how long do they last? Like, just give a bird's eye view of what clinical trials are.
Yeah, it's a great question. Clinical trials, or sometimes they're called clinical studies, are a type of research that helps scientists and doctors to learn more about ways to manage different diseases and medical conditions. And really, for any medicine to be prescribed or sold, they must go through a very long and careful research and approval process. And after, potential medicines have been through testing in a lab, clinical trials are performed to understand if they're safe and effective in humans. And clinical trials are really the only way that researchers are able to understand diseases and how potential medications may work in people of different ages, races, sexes, and more.
So, Dr.
No.
Megan, as a medical doctor, I don't do, all of this type of work every day. So, what was your motivation behind deciding to be a clinical trial investigator?
I have such a passion in getting to care for people who have lupus. And I would just say I loved getting to hear the stories that were being told today, and just am so grateful to get to share this space with you. And I really strongly believe that one of the keys to advancing health equity is ensuring that people from diverse backgrounds join clinical trials. And as we know, people may experience the same disease differently. And that's especially true in lupus because lupus affects everybody in different ways. An accurate representation of people in clinical trials not only helps to fight health disparities and inequalities, but it's also just good science. And that's why it's critical that the people who are involved in clinical trials accurately represent the population that the medications are designed to treat. And historically, clinical trials did not always recruit participants who represented the people most affected by a certain disease. Most clinical trials historically relied on almost exclusively on white male participants, which we know are not the major group of people who get lupus. And this shortcoming has created a huge gap in our understanding of diseases, preventative factors, and how well treatments work across different populations. And it's these gaps in knowledge that make it harder for doctors to counsel patients on how to reduce their risk and advise them on their best treatment options. And I really do believe that these gaps in knowledge are also really holding us back from the development of more effective medications and interventions. And this is so particularly important in lupus. I think, as we all know here, lupus is a disease that disproportionately affects minority populations and disproportionately affects women. Black people make up 43% of people with lupus, but are only 14% of people in clinical lupus trials. We know that white people make up about a third of people with lupus, but they are vastly overrepresented in clinical trials, making up over half of clinical trial participants. And we know,
Just because you brought that up, and I thought that was such an important point, and just really getting the grasp on that. And because I think for our viewers that might not know all this data might be, like really, really overwhelming. I remember a world where there were no lupus medications, and to hear a statistic like that, that so many, white male who don't get this disease are at the proportionate rate that we do, are the people that we're testing this on, that we're allowing to be the ones that say this works. And so I appreciate that. I mean, while we talk about that part, I'm really curious, just because I want to make sure I use this time. Can you just talk about what's required of a participant in a clinical trial? I think people don't always understand that. Maybe there's a quick overview of the clinical trial process you could give. Not that we're going to go through it as we go through the rest of this season, but maybe just a quick overview would be really helpful.
Absolutely. What I'd start by saying is that every trial is different, so the requirements are going to be different for each clinical trial. But what's the same is that before you join any clinical trial, the first and most important step is that the study team, so those are the doctors, the researchers, the research assistants, they're going to get together and give you a very detailed overview of the trial. And that's part of what we call the informed consent process. And during the informed consent process, you'll learn details about the trial, how long the trial will be. Some trials are just a couple of months, other trials are 20 or 30 years. They can be anywhere in between. You'll learn about what you'll be asked to do. You'll learn about any known risks of the medications, any potential benefits of the medications. And then you'll also learn who to contact with questions, concerns, or if you counter any problems. And it's after you go through this informed consent process, it's completely up to you as to whether or not you want to join the trial. And even if you do join the study, you're free to leave at any time.
I think that was the thing. I participated in a clinical trial, and actually the thing that I was studying came to be. It's actually a treatment that people have access to now. And I think that was the thing that made me feel really comfortable, was the fact that you can leave at any time. I thought once originally, because I first said no, just so you all know, I said hell to the no. When my rheumatologist first brought it to me, I was like, no, chill, y'all not gonna use me as a guinea pig. But I think that was the thing, like this idea that even if I signed, I could say, this don't work for me for whatever reason, and be able to walk away. And I think that that's an important thing. We're gonna take some time to talk about informed consent in a future episode, but I do want to thank Dr. Megan Lockwood. Thank you so much for sharing the work you do. And you're at Georgetown University. Where is that located?
That's right. We're in Washington, D.C., and we care for patients all throughout the DMV.
Oh, okay. DMV in the house. I wonder if we have anybody from the DMV in the chat. I'm going to see the check if DMV's in the house. Please put thoughts in the chat. But I just want to say thank you so much. It was really, really helpful to hear you share just a little bit about what this process is. And we're going to keep doing these conversations with other investigator sites just to really understand how this could be, what are the things that we need to know to consider this. Maybe it's an option for some of you out there, maybe it's not, but we want to always make sure that we give our people informed information so they can make informed decisions. So thank you so much. And thank you once again to our guests, Khalib, Lakasha, Dr. Shorter, Dr. Lockwood. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, I think it's so true. The more we understand the science behind our bodies and the resources available to us, we're able to make better decisions about things like clinical trials. So we also want to thank you, our viewers, who have been active in the chat and supporting us throughout the show. Thank you to Biogen for allowing us to be with all of you tonight. And if anyone is interested in getting more information about lupus or information about participating in clinical trials like we just talked about, please go to www.biogentriallink, BIOGEN triallink.com.
Yes, and if you're interested in a specific study, just a specific clinical study, like you're like, I want to do this, I want to learn more, please take a second to scan any one of these QR codes that you see on the screen to learn a little bit more. And this is more details for you.
And if you didn't get a chance to scan the codes, we'll share them again at the end of the show. They'll be in the chat. You can find them online. So just join us next week, or I'm sorry, the week after next week, which is Tuesday, November 5th, for the new episode of Better Together, sharing our lupus stories.
Yes, it's on election day. Some of us might need a break from the intensity of that day.
So real. So our topic will be managing the cost of lupus. We're going to be exploring the different ways to cope with money and time that lupus requires and really delve deep into that conversation. Again, please join our community. Follow us on Instagram at For Better Together Lupus. You will see links to all of these great guest pages and also on Facebook. So now, to close our show, as always, Shanelle's spoken word.
You think you own me. Squeezed my life in your palms, taking over my body. You think you are me, lupus. You think because you've hijacked this vessel that you're captain. You think you can get away with mutiny. But see, I'm still the same me, the same beautiful butterfly floating on the breeze. I'm not scared to wrestle the wind, to battle Reynard's thorn, not afraid to diss this disease, to find peace, to be at ease with this disease. I missed my old life, but I'm fashioning a new one with this disease. And in no way am I saying this is easy. The way that my cells fight themselves, that my chest rests in a cage of pleurisy, that my scalp cries strands of my hair, that the pain in my knees, which interfere with my prayers, makes it hard to sometimes find the joy in life. But no matter what makes the sun less bright, but I know no matter what, there's nothing that can take away my fight. And when it seems to make my day feel like night, I'll still reach for a star. When it seems my world spins left, I resolve to force it to revolve right. And even if my limbs refuse to move, my spirit will still dance. Every day, I'm going to choose to enhance this universe with my presence in any way I can. See, listen, grateful to those that can support me. I love me, and I know that lupus is not me, but it's the spark that created a flame. My lupus is not me, but it's still the source of my vanity. Lupus, you can't damage me because my body isn't all that I possess. See, I still have a purpose, a reason to smile. I'm still living my life with no regrets. Thank you so much, y'all. See you in 2 weeks.